I find a lot of people are not educated about how to get HIV. So I think part of it's education. I think a lot of times people think that they can't get it. I literally I was getting an AIDS test because I do this pretty regularly several years ago, and the counselor was telling me that he was counseling someone and they were 17 and said, "Oh, I'm not 21 yet. I can't get HIV." So he thought that he couldn't get it because he's 17 and he's not 21 yet, and he was having unprotected sex. So I think part of it is an educational thing.
Would you like to introduce yourself?
I'm Laverne Cox. Hi. So I think part of it's an educational thing, and then also I think it's a self-esteem thing for folks who do know how to protect themselves. That do we value our lives and believe that we deserve to protect ourselves. No amount of money should be worth us risking our lives. So how do we really begin to value ourselves and feel that our health is worth it? And so I think it is a self-esteem thing, even when someone is offering you money, that we shouldn't be willing, even if we're in the sex industry, folks in the sex industry shouldn't be willing, and I know folks in the sex industry who are not willing to have unsafe sex for at a certain amount of money. So just because you're a sex worker doesn't mean that you shouldn't have self-esteem. Everybody wants to, there's a basic human need to want to connect with someone, but if you're this empowered woman and you're a feminist and you want to protect yourself, if you're empowered, basically, a lot of men don't want you. So I feel there's, in the post-feminist sort of backlash, a lot of men are withholding their affection, their love, unless you submit to what they want. So I think there's a whole issue of power.
It's like a power exchange.
A power exchange, and I think men are implicated in this because you don't get HIV by yourself. So the people who are spreading it and who want someone to submit to them are a part of the equation too. So I think it's really this whole thing of of empowerment in sort of a larger feminist context. Because I think a big misconception about trans women is that we basically are all infected with some STD. Yeah, I know that a lot of, as being a single woman trans woman in New York, men will assume that you have an STD automatically. So there's a misconception that there's a higher rate of HIV in trans women. And I actually wanted to say something about the intimacy thing too. I think there's a whole, this is on a slightly different point, I think there's a thing of intimacy and love, and a sense of wanting to connect that we all want. And the way to get that connection and love is not necessarily by having unprotected sex. How do we really begin to talk about what real intimacy and what real connection is? I think is something that's important to when we talk about HIV prevention, I think.
Yep, what's the deal?